Welcome to Access and Conversation, Episode 1, Passing the Reins, in conversation with Judith Smith, moderated by Artistic Director Marc Brew. Today's guest, Judith Smith, founder and director emerita of Access Dance Company, is a driving force in physically integrated dance. Under Judith's direction, Access Commission works from the nation's best choreographers and develop the field's most extensive integrated dance education outreach program. Her advocacy work led to the first ever national meeting on the future of physically integrated dance in the United States of America. Judith has received an Isadora Duncan Dance Award for Sustained Achievement, KQED's Local Hero, and was honored as one of Theater Bay Area's 40 people that have changed the face of Bay Area theater. Judith was recently inducted into the Alameda County's Women's Hall of Fame. Please join us in welcoming Judith Smith and Artistic Director Marc Brew for a conversation about passing the reins.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for Access in Conversation Online. And I'm extremely excited to welcome you, Judy, for being our first guest for our In Conversation series. This is especially for our online community and also for us to connect with our people online from all around the world. So we're going to go through and ask some simple questions and would love to hear your input, your memories, and your experiences. So let's begin. So Judy, you've been retired since March 2018. How has it been since your retirement? And what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, I am co-chairing the Deaf and Disability Affinity Group. So I'm still involved in integrated dance. I also, especially the first year that I was retired, I did a lot of arts jury duty, sitting on panels and evaluating proposals, and that was really fun. And then I've done some project consulting, some behind the scenes work. But mostly I've been enjoying gardening and raising butterflies and going birding, driving horses, working out a lot, and I volunteer at our local Oakland Animal Services, which is a really wonderful animal shelter here in Oakland. So I'm getting to do things that I just really didn't have as much time as I wanted to have for.
And I think I remember, Judy, you telling me that for you it's not retirement, but you're calling it something else.
Oh, I started calling it restorement. Because that's really, what it felt like to me, was just kind of restoring myself and restoring my life. But I didn't really consider myself to be stopping work per se.
So Judy, Access is now in its 33rd year, and you've led the company through a lot in its history. What is one of your first memories of Access?
Well, I think early memory is just being in the studio and trying to figure out how we moved together, how I moved myself, not having been a dancer, how I used my equipment, my power chair, to create movement, to create dance. It was just, my earliest memory is just really the excitement, of working with different bodies, and just being in the studio was a really new and different experience. And, we didn't know other people that were doing it. So it really felt like we were, creating something really new.
And how many were you together that began at the beginning with Access in the studio, working together, different bodies, different disabilities?
There were 4 of us with disabilities, all wheelchair users, and then there were 3 non-disabled dancers, including Thais Mazer, who was the first artistic director.
Right. And Judy, what most excites you about Access after all these years?
Oh, I think what is endlessly fascinating for me is the movement potential that you can, what can be created when you get bodies who move really differently together. And, that changes as soon as one of the people in the puzzle changes, So just the possibilities of movement are just endless.
And Judy, over all these years of history with Access, I know this is going to be a hard question to answer and just pick three. But I am asking you, if you had to choose three sort of highlights or memories that you had through your journey with Access, what would be those three highlights that stand out for you?
Well, definitely working with Bill T. Jones and Janet Wong, and creating that first repertory that we did of commissioned works, which was Joe Good, Joanna Highgood, Sonia Delwade, and Bill. And I think the Bill T piece was really a turning point for Access, and really kind of a launch pad. So that definitely stands out. I think the residency that we did in Novosibirsk, Siberia in 1995 was kind of life-changing for me, and I think for all of us that were on that trip. And I think, always those firsts, like the first Rockefeller MAP grant, the first National Dance Project grant, the first Doris Duke Charitable Fund, those big grants that are so impactful and so hard to get, and really help you do what you want to do. I think that those are really memorable. And, but definitely just being in the studio with all of the different choreographers and composers and designers and dancers that we've had.
Wonderful, Judy. I just wanted to pick up on the Bill T. Jones. Obviously he's such an iconic choreographer in American dance history, and it was pretty much Access's first commission that you got to commission, and it's such a huge commission. I just wanted to ask, how did that happen? And I believe you made quite a huge investment for Access to commission Bill T. Jones.
Yeah, we did. Well, how it happened was Jeremy Alliger, who was the director and founder of Dance Umbrella in Boston, wanted to commission Access to do a work. And I said, why don't we commission somebody to do a work on us? And he said, well, who would you like to work with? And I just blurted out Bill T. Jones. I said, okay, I'll see if I can make that happen. And he was a good friend of Bill's. He was one of the first presenters to really shepherd Bill into, the presenting spotlight. So he called Bill, and Bill said, yeah, he had some concerns because it was shortly after a review came out about his work Still Here that Arlene Croce wrote without reviewing the piece in person, and coined it victim art. It was a piece about people's movement that was built on the stories and the movement of people with terminal illness. And Arlene Croce just said there was no place for sick people, old people, fat people, disabled people on stage. And it was really kind of broke open this whole dialogue internationally about who gets to dance and who gets to say what dance is. So just coming off that, he felt like it was a huge responsibility to create a work with Access, because he knew that it would have to be a good work and that it couldn't be victim art or token in any way. So he felt a lot of pressure, and we certainly felt a lot of pressure. We did work with Sonia and Joanna, and a little bit with Joe before Bill came in. It was the first piece that we commissioned, but the way schedules worked, it wasn't the first one that we rehearsed. So I think we all felt a lot of pressure, and it was expensive for us. It was half of our operating budget to commission Bill, and I wasn't, I was a little bit afraid to do it. But I also felt like it was an opportunity that we couldn't pass up, and it was a good move. But it was a risk. It was a risk for Bill. it was a risk for us financially, and we didn't want to let Bill down, and we wanted to create a good work too. And we were really new to commissioning still, so it was a tough piece. It was a really technically difficult piece.
And it definitely assisted in putting Access on the map, nationally and internationally, to have that work in the repertoire. And also what I'm hearing is, in this field, it's really important to build partnerships and connections through this field. And this sort of brings me to my next question about making choices and taking risk. But Access was on So You Think You Can Dance, and that really exposed millions of people to physically integrated dance. When Access performed on the show, it was twice that you got to perform on the show. What was it like for you at the time, and why did you decide to do that?
Well, Nigel, who created So You Think You Can Dance, was familiar with integrated dance, and from his time in the UK, and he wanted to bring a company on, and Danae Reese was working with him at the time, and said, well, why don't you bring Access? And so I got the call, and I will say that at first I was a little bit like, oy vey, because it's such a different thing than doing concert dance. That's on a proscenium stage. It's in front of an audience that's not screaming and yelling teenagers. It's a sound bite, and we didn't have pieces. We'd never created a piece. We didn't have the time to create like a 1.5 to 2 minute piece. And it's filmed from 6, 8, 10 different angles. So, it was, and So You Think You Can Dance was still pretty new at that point. And it was kind of formulaic, and it was a little bit controversial in the contemporary dance world, about what it was doing. I felt like it was doing a really good thing in exposing people to dance. So I had to really think about that, and think about what work we could even put on there that would present well, and that would present well filmed from, all different kinds of perspectives, and so I took me about a day, but I also realized that the opportunity was just, again, one that couldn't be passed up, because there were going to be millions of people who had never seen anyone in a wheelchair dance, didn't know it was possible, didn't know that anyone who wasn't disabled would even want to dance with disabled people. Why, so, and then there were all these disabled people out there who didn't know it was a possibility for them. So I just felt like, politically, socially, it was a really important thing to do. And we chose a duet that Alex Ketley had created for Rodney Bell and Sancharay Giles. And, he took that 12-minute duet and crunched it down into the 2 most impactful minutes that he felt. And, it was very well received. And, our website just went bonkers. Facebook went bonkers. It was really a good thing to do. And we heard so many parents and so many young people, young disabled kids and older disabled people, who just were so appreciative, because they really didn't know that this was a possibility. And, non-disabled dancers and choreographers who were completely blown away, and also for some reason had never come across it, in all of their dance literature and study and everything else, because it really still, this was in 2011, and it was still not that prevalent in, university level dance canon.
Yeah, wow. And Judy, through all these years with the company, and the history you've had. You've had such an impact on the dance field, and also for people with disabilities through Access's pillars of artistry, engagement, and advocacy. So how did you know it was time for you to retire? How did that decision come about for you?
Well, I didn't feel like I was ready to retire. And I really felt like I had about 5 more years of work. But my body just hit a wall. And I just, I couldn't continue. But I also felt like, even though there were a lot of things that I wanted to do still, I was hoping that I'd find a way to be able to do those. But I also knew that, I had already talked to you for 2 years, 3 years about, taking over the artistic leadership of the company. We had created, I'd done the national convening, which was something that I really wanted to do. I'd gotten that done and gotten the regional convenings done, and, published the report on that, and came out with the artistic advancement platform, and we had major goodwill in the funders community. So I just felt like, if I had to leave and I just really couldn't continue, that I was leaving Access in a good place with, strong board leadership in Jeannie Bunker and you, Robin stepping up, all of the, funders that we had supporting the platform. So I felt like, I couldn't leave it. I didn't want to leave I didn't want to leave it in a bad place. So, I'd kind of been working for a few years to change my position so that I wasn't doing so much of the administrative, because it just, it totally fried me, trying to run the company. So, it was not really my choice. And I did feel like there were things that I wanted to do that I didn't get done.
Well, I know I can speak on behalf of all of us at Access, myself and the board, of how internally grateful we are to all that you've done. And I know that I've shared with you personally, how honored I was for you to ask me whether I would be interested in taking over as a artistic director, but just wanting to say publicly, to everyone that, I was very honored, for all the people around the world that you could have asked. I felt very, very, very humble and honored to take over the reins from you. But of course, some big shoes to fill, that's for sure, because you did a lot. But, that hasn't stopped you at all, really. I mean, you're not working for Access full time, but advocacy was very much an important part of you and what you brought to Access as well. Could you share with us some of the advocacy work that you've been up to since leaving Access?
Well, I've been involved, both in advocacy in the dance world, but I think most importantly, I've been able to get involved in some advocacy issues that really affect the local disability community. Things around in-home support services that, supports those of us that need personal care. I've been involved in, I don't know, a lot of you probably don't know, but wildfire season here in California, they've started to shut down like sections of the power grid, and that's left people with disabilities in a really vulnerable place. So there's been a group of people that I'm involved with that has been working on those issues and, getting that issue into the news. So those are some like really, kind of grassroots things that do affect my life personally. And then I'm still working, with the deaf and disability affinity group at Dance USA, and, looking at different ways that we can keep advancing the work of the field.
And Judy, I know, you know, as part of your advocacy work as well, and the work you did for Access was about also creating opportunities for other disabled people who have never had access and wanted to be able to have access to dance and dance training. I'm just wondering whether you had, you know, through your vast career, about any offerings of advice and wisdom that you'd share with emerging disabled artists or disabled people who have always wanted to dance but never thought it possible.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's not easy, but it's so much easier now than it was even 5 years ago, you know, because we have so much more visibility. You know, the work that Dance NYC did, which started right before Access's National Convening Project started, you know, so there's so many more resources. You know, also you have the internet, and we didn't have that, you know, when we started this company. I mean, we were 20 years in before the internet really, you know, was a valuable resource and a tool. So, you know, I think finding the community in whatever way you can. And right now, because so much is online, you know, there are so many different classes, both, you know, that are geared towards people with disabilities and those that aren't, that you can go on and, you know, test drive them and see. So finding community, connecting. And if you're able to and can relocate to, you know, a center where there is a lot of dance and disability happening, that's, you know, that's not an easy thing to do, but a lot of people have done it, and it's really helped grow their careers. I know I moved to the Bay Area to get snow out of my life, you know, and that just opened up a lot of possibilities. So sometimes, you know, relocating to make a dream happen is worthwhile. And, you know, if you want to get a university degree, you're going to have to find somebody who will champion you, you know, and really get behind you as a mentor and an advisor. But, you know, prepare to work hard for sure. You know, but it's such an incredible field, and such, you know, dance just has so much to offer us as individuals, as community, you know, as a society.
Yeah, some really great advice there, Judy. Thank you. And yeah, I also agree that with the Access, you know, with our online classes, not just at Access, but other offerings, it really has created opportunity for disabled people who may, through the disability, be at home because of that reason and have not been able to access a dance class up till now. So it is a great opportunity now to try different classes out, and also that you can try classes out without having to be on video and show your videos, so you can really give things an opportunity to explore. So I also would encourage people during this time to try some of the online classes that are available for us now. And so one thing I'm interested in is, like, how do we take some of that technology now and that learning to then when we do one day get back in the studio? So I hope that other companies and other people, individuals and teachers will look at keeping this going as we move forward through this. So now in 2020, here at Access, and you sort of observing what Access has been doing and also being involved. I know you're involved with me personally as well and being great support for the company. But if you could choose a word to describe Access today, what would that be?
Resilient. I think that's been a through thread for the company from the very beginning, you know, is resiliency, resilient. Yeah.
And Judy, our last question for today. I wanted to ask you what your legacy would be. What would you hope that people would write about you in the dance history books?
Wow, I have no idea. Maybe just that I contributed to, you know, growing the field and creating opportunity. You know, I think, I don't know.
I definitely have lots of thoughts. Rena, risk taker, really pushing the field of dance, opening up opportunities for next generation. You've done a lot, and I know that I and many other people in the dance world and in this field are extremely grateful for what you've done. And personally, thank you for being our first person on our Access in Conversation Online. And we value your time and all that you've done for Access. And thank you, Judy, so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Onward and onward.
Onwards we go. And for all our community out there, please stay in touch, look through our website, joining our classes, and also look out for our next Access in Conversation. Thank you.
Start dancing and keep dancing.
There you go. Keep dancing, everyone.